It was phenomenal how close we got to the animals.
A wonderful experience, has exceeded all of our expectations.
Get close to them was like a dream come true.
It's been a joy traveling with these individuals, and we're certainly going to see them again.
But there is no way that we could have come up with this trip on our own.
Their attention to detail, to me, made the trip seamless, and so you could just sit back and enjoy the ride.
The facilities at each property where we stayed were all very different, but all very special.
As they do it the most awesome way.
We cannot say enough good things about the concierge level service that WALLSabout delivered.
He got the best possible guides to put us in the best possible spots.
Right. The guides that are handpicked by WALLSabout Luxury Travel are amazing.
It was great. It was wonderful.
Everything was perfection.
Every single day has been amazing.
Every day offered something that you cannot describe, you just have to be here and see it.
The people of Kenya and Tanzania are really wonderful.
Biggest compliment we could give to this trip is that we can't wait to do it again.
We'll be back.
What's up everybody, Benjamin Walls here, coming to you from New Zealand. In this video, I'm going to share highlights from our most recent epic adventure in this spectacular country, and then I'm going to answer your frequently asked questions. Okay, y'all, this is what we did in New Zealand. We started off with an incredible walking tour of Christchurch led by a local Maori. This was a really powerful experience. I know you're thinking walking tour, powerful experience doesn't make sense. It's incredible. More about the Maori history is incorporated in this tour, and the city of Christchurch itself. Really awesome way to kick off the tour and get rest on day one because we just had a long flight. Next day, we were up and over Arthur's Pass. This is easily one of the most spectacular drives I've ever been on. Oh, by the way, I'll probably say that 3 times on this itinerary. Gorgeous drives in New Zealand. Arthur's Pass, made a stop at one of the filming locations for Lord of the Rings, lunch on the west coast of New Zealand, a place called Hokitika, afternoon into the incredible Hokitika Gorge, these beautiful glacial waters that are flowing through an incredible subtropical rainforest with the giant ferns, suspension bridges. What an amazing experience. And then finish the day checking into our incredible forest retreat at the Franz Josef Glacier. Okay, the next day is our CYOA Glacier Day, which basically means participants choose their own adventure. Some participants went up on the glacier and did a glacier landing, where the helicopter actually lands on the glacier. You get out, you take some beautiful photographs, jump back in the chopper, and continue your helicopter tour. Other participants actually did a glacier hike, where the helicopter will take you up to the glacier, and then you get out, you strap on your crampons, you're with a guide, and you go through a maze of crevasses. So you get down in the glacier. It's about a 3 or 4 hour experience, and pretty incredible. And then other individuals that didn't want to go up on the glacier, you can actually hike out and see the glacier from a distance. pretty cool experience as well. So everybody got to choose what they were doing in the morning. In the afternoon, we went out to the Wildlife Center. So we were able to see the very rare and incredible nocturnal kiwi bird. Of course, New Zealand folks are known as Kiwis, and that's, of course, the namesake originally comes from the bird, the kiwi bird. So we were able to see the kiwi birds and learn more about the conservation efforts going on right now with the kiwi to expand the kiwi population and kind of their plights and challenges that they have because of some feral species that are actually preying on the kiwi and how they're holding their own. Really fascinating story, cool stuff. And that was it for the day. We tucked in at the beautiful forest retreat property there in Franz Josef. The next day, we went on an incredible hike at Lake Matheson. Now, this is a lake, weather permitting, that you're able to see Mount Cook, the highest mountain in New Zealand, reflecting down into the lake. Beautiful area for birds, beautiful area for all the different vegetation around the lake, and then that alpine view. Oh, just incredible. From there, we were able to roll down the coastline. We have a couple of stops on one of the other spectacular drives that we do on this trip. We work our way over Haast Pass and the gates of Haast, and this is an incredible drive. Coastline, the mountain pass, the blue pools, the lakes that we come to, the glacier-carved lakes, and then ending at Lake Wanaka. And so we overnighted there, right on the lake shores in the beautiful town of Wanaka. Okay, the next day we were up and out to see the world-famous Wanaka tree. This is a tree that's actually growing out of the lake and has the lake surrounding it. There's beautiful mountains in the background. Incredible sight and destination. After the Wanaka tree, we went out to a lavender farm. And so the lavender farm, of course, is famous for its lavender, but its beautiful gardens. And we time our trip with the fall and the fall colors. So not only was the lavender farm beautiful and fragrant because of the lavender, but it was also stunning because of the fall colors. Afterwards, we went to an incredible lunch venue that was immediately adjacent to a wine tasting venue. So those that wanted to participate in wine tasting was able to do that and learn more about the Central Otago, which is the famous wine valley here, especially for Pinot Noir. And then after that, we came back to Wanaka and did some shopping. There was a local artisan market that was on, and Wanaka has some really nice shops. So we did some shopping before dinner. We had an incredible multi-course dinner in Wanaka, and then fell into bed once again right there on the lake shores of Lake Wanaka. Big day. The next day is Queenstown Adventure Day 1, and we started it off with a bang. We went for bungee jumping first thing in the morning, and don't worry, you don't have to go bungee jumping if you go on our New Zealand itinerary, but it is a lot of fun, and if you don't do it, you have just as much fun because you get to watch your newfound friends do a bungee jump. And we do this right off of a historic bridge in Queenstown. This was the location of the original bungee jumping, commercial bungee jumping location in the entire world. So it's the spot to do it. They have a flawless track record. And after that, we made our way down to the Shotover River, had a wonderful lunch before loading up in the type of adventure vehicle that we're really known for with WALLSabout, and that is the Toyota Land Cruiser. So we were able to jump in the Toyota Land Cruisers and actually do a 4x4 trek way into the mountains. And then we did a separate trail up one of the rivers where the gold mining actually used to be all throughout this riverbed. There's a 4x4 track through there, and it's not really a track. It's basically you're driving up the river. It was a wonderful adventure, and everybody loved it. After this, we made our way down into Queenstown and up the gondola, where we had a wonderful dinner. And for the folks that didn't have enough, that had any adrenaline left, they actually went out for a little mini luging. Yep, that's right. There's a luge course at the top of the gondola. As you can see, when in Queenstown, do adventure. That's kind of the motto around here. And the next day, of course, is Queenstown Adventure Day 2. This is the day where you get to CYOA, choose your own adventure. So we had some folks that actually went skydiving, some folks that went rafting, Some individuals elected to go hiking. Some folks did a massive hike. Others are more of an easy stroll. Some folks went shopping. On and on. The options are endless in Queenstown, and we had a wonderful day choosing our own adventure. The next day we took a spectacular drive, one of my personal favorites, all the way down to Milford Sound. This is you're navigating Fiordland National Park. Little hikes along the way, tons of viewpoints, incredible photos. We got to see where the sequel to Alien was being filmed recently. We got to see Mirror Lakes Trail, and on, all these amazing different stops. Arriving in Milford Sound, around just before sunset, we were able to see the sound and Mitre Peak, the second highest mountain in the world to come directly out of the ocean in all its glory, and then checked in, and we actually stayed the night in Milford Sound. This is one of the only properties you can do that, and it's a spectacular property right on the river. You've got giant mountains rising out of the river in all directions around you, and we had a wonderful dinner. It was really an incredible day. The next morning, each participant woke up to a bit of a surprise, breakfast in bed. Of course, the property, as I mentioned, you're overlooking the river there in Milford Sound, and you've got the mountains in the background, so why not enjoy that property, enjoy that room, and have breakfast in bed. After that, we went out on a private boat and went on a cruise all the way out through Milford Sound. There were dolphins jumping. It had just rained, so the waterfalls were pumping. There was mist hanging in the valley in every direction. Really incredible cruise. After that, we boarded our flight back to Queenstown. And this is not just transportation, this is scenic. So we flew out into Milford Sound, and then the planes turned and went over the Southern Alps. And it was incredible. There were rainbows, the mist was hanging in the valley and rolling over the top of the mountaintops, and everybody's jaw was on the floor of the plane. It was really, really spectacular. And then last but not least, we checked into our Queenstown accommodation for our last evening, and we had another surprise cooked up. We actually, everybody had a chance to go and soak in one of the hot tubs overlooking the lake there in Queenstown. Beautiful setting, amazing experience before our farewell dinner where everybody came together one last time before departing the next morning. Okay, and now it is time to answer your questions. Here we go. Question number one, what is so special about the destinations we actually visit in New Zealand? And I am proud to say and honored to say that I've spent about 3 months of my life, if you added my different trips here to New Zealand together, exploring both islands, and I've tried to create the best of the best itinerary. We focus in specifically on the most majestic places on the South Island, everything from the mountain peaks to the rainforest to the lakes, the glacial carved fjords, etc. Each one of these destinations has been hand-picked, as well as the properties, and I'm very, very proud of the itinerary. The highlights that you may have watched, or if you haven't watched those yet, check those out. We'll go into further detail about the special locations that we visit on this itinerary. Okay, next up, how fit do I need to be to go on the New Zealand itinerary? Well, as a baseline, an absolute minimum, if you are fit enough to navigate an international airport, in other words, you're able to get from one gate to the next in one of those big international airports, then you're fit enough to go on our New Zealand itinerary. Now, that being said, there are some opportunities to do optional hikes that are an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours, and more on our primary itinerary. And you might be thinking, how is that possible? Well, we make that possible through our Choose Your Own Adventure days, and that way folks can go and they can choose their own adventure. They can choose the activity that suits them the best, whether that's high adventure or long hikes, etc. And then also, if you're really keen on hiking, then ask us about doing an optional extension where you would not be with a program director, but we could help you book in some special hiking opportunities if that's really what you're after. So again, if you're fit enough to navigate an international airport, that's the bare minimum for you to navigate the short walks and the walks to the viewpoints and then walks to the properties and back to the our little luxury mini coach that we travel around in and the different vehicles that we travel around in. That would be a baseline minimum. Okay, next up, what is the most spectacular view you've seen in New Zealand? Well, I think this might be a trick question because truly around every corner in New Zealand, I describe it as condensed beauty. Every corner, there's a new vista, there's a new mountain, there's a new forest, there's a new beach. It is truly, truly spectacular around every corner, and it's very difficult to pinpoint an absolute favorite. That being said, I do think there's nothing quite like Milford Sound and Mitre Peak, which is the second highest mountain in the world to come directly out of the ocean. It's about 6,000 feet in elevation. It comes straight out of the ocean. It is absolutely majestic and spectacular. So that's one of my personal favorites, but lots of incredible views along the way. The glaciers from Franz Josef, the Mount Cook reflecting into the water near Fox Glacier at Lake Matheson, that's spectacular. Tianao, right here, this lake, which is the place that I captured original blues. You might see the little jetty over my shoulder here. It's just such condensed beauty around every corner. It is spectacular, and it also spectacular in different weather conditions. This is a rare sunny day here in Tianao, and so a lot of times there's some dramatic, moody weather, which is spectacular and beautiful in and of itself. Sometimes we catch incredible rainstorms and the fjords, and then the entire landscape just turns into waterfalls. Not tens, not hundreds, but thousands of waterfalls coming down these steep mountain cliffs and down into the fjords. So New Zealand is breathtaking. Okay, next up, how long is the flight to New Zealand? And the best answer to this question is you don't want to know. Hey, look, we're on the backside of the world, way down under, and yeah, 12 hours, 13 hours from LAX is going to be a direct flight from there down to Christchurch, where our tour begins. It's a long flight, but let's keep things in perspective, everybody. It's not 6 months on a boat, the way the first European settlers came to Australia and New Zealand and explorers. So it's a lot shorter than that, but it is a very long flight. You might consider upgrading to priority or business or first class, depending on how comfortable you want to be on the long journey. Okay, next up, CYOA. What does it mean? Well, I said this earlier, choose your own adventure. So one of the ways that we tailor the trip to everybody that joins us is through our CYOA day. Are you really into shopping? Well, we can make that day tailored so that you get a lot of shopping in. Are you really into hiking? Are you really into adventure sports? Are you really into golfing? Do you want to take a hot air balloon? Is there something that's not even on the CYOA page but is available in that destination? We try to make it happen for our participants. So choose your own adventure just means that we're tailoring the trip to your interests, and that's one of the ways that you get the best of both worlds, where you're on a trip with a group, you're meeting new friends, you've got the expertise of WALLSabout, but you're not pigeonholed to the exact things that we're most interested in. You also have the ability to choose your own adventure. Okay, next up, what is my favorite choose your own adventure activity? Wow, that's really hard to pick because there's so many incredible opportunities here, but I would have to say that the glacial hike is incredible. Here's why. You land up on the glacier and you're teamed up with a mountain guide, and you put your crampons on and you go through this maze of the crevasses of the glacier. It is truly enamoring to see these different shades of blue, the glacial ice from down inside the glacier. It's an adrenaline rush in some ways because you know you're inside this glacier. The view is incredible, and you've got the helicopter, of course, that takes you up to the glacier, so that ride in and of itself is really spectacular. So I'd have to say that's one of my personal favorites, but there's a lot of different opportunities. If you're not into helicopter flights, you know, there's a lot of other things that are going on. If you're super into extreme sports, you know, well, actually, that is the next question. So why is Queenstown the adventure capital of the world? And to be honest, why? I'm not really sure. It's just in the culture here that, especially in Queenstown, they're constantly inventing and reinventing extreme sports. So the very first bungee jump facility that was available to the public was right in Queenstown, New Zealand. We actually do our bungee jumping from that location. It's a beautiful historic bridge that they've set up for bungee jumping, and it's a great vantage point to watch. So even if you don't do the bungee jumping, you have the opportunity to see your newfound friends actually jump off a perfectly good bridge. It's incredible. And there are lots of other potentials and activities as well that are more and less extreme. I can't go over all of them right now because there's just so many, and that's why Queenstown is known as the adventure capital of the world. Okay, next up, do you only offer tours in the spring, or can I travel another time of year? Well, at current, we do just offer trips in the spring. You may notice spring for us in North America is actually fall in New Zealand, and this is one of my absolute favorite times to be here. The fall colors are popping out, the weather's perfect, the number of daylight hours is really nice for traveling. There's a possibility you can see a little dusting of snow up on the mountain peaks, but it's nice and warm down in the valleys. So it's just a really nice time of year to travel, and that's why we set the trip up for the New Zealand autumn, our spring. But if you're really keen to travel another time of year, you always have the opportunity to do a custom itinerary. So reach out to my concierge team and we're happy to provide more information about that. Okay, next up, how do we travel around in New Zealand? Well, travel around is a little bit relative because we've got our luxury mini coaches, we've got the 4x4s that we do one day, we've got the jet boating if you're doing that, we've got skydiving, blah, 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 blah. But I assume that you mean, how do we get from point A to point B? And with the exception of our scenic flight that does get us from point A to point B, we travel around in a Mercedes Sprinter, which is a luxury mini coach. That way we can get into a lot of different areas. Of course, we're not doing big tour bus group sizes, so it fits our groups really, really well. They've got those huge windshields and huge side windows, and it enables our participants to see the views from the drive. And this is really important because the drives are spectacular. 3 of the different drives that we do from point A to point B on this trip are not just to get us from point A to point B, they are to take in the scenery. And so it's really important that we have the mini coaches with those huge windshields and huge windows, and that way everybody can enjoy the view. Okay, next up, what currency do I use in New Zealand? Well, the answer to that is the New Zealand dollar for most things. Let me explain. So if you're purchasing something at a gift shop or you're using cash, you'll need to use New Zealand dollars. Of course, most people are using credit cards these days, so if you have a good travel credit card, check with your credit card to see how that works with regards if there's any fee at all to use your credit card overseas and how the conversion rate works. But if you have a good travel card, most purchases can be made on your credit card. It's automatically converted to US dollars at the daily exchange rate, and it makes it really, really easy. Now, I'm going to kind of combine this with the next question, and that is, what about tipping? And so if during our services on your itinerary, our program director will actually be doing the vast majority of tipping for you. And so you don't even have to worry about tipping. And then if you're traveling before or after our services on the trip, then of course you can tip at your discretion. And of course, tips would be done in New Zealand dollars for anybody that's here in New Zealand. But let me just really highlight one key point here. The only tips during your main trip that you really have to worry about is the tip to your program director. And so tips to program directors, regardless of what country we're operating in, are always done in US dollars. And so the suggested tipping guidelines for the program director will be sent to you by the travel concierge team before you ever go overseas. That way you can know about how much money to bring with you for tips. And as always, tipping is 100% at your discretion for exceptional service. And but you know, that's truly what we always expect from our exceptional program directors. So to recap, you can use your credit cards just about everywhere in New Zealand. If you're paying cash for something, then you'll want to use New Zealand dollars, and check with your credit card company with regards to the conversion rate and how that works, so you're not getting hit with a lot of different fees. And then tips for anybody in New Zealand, if you just want to go above and beyond, because the program director is already tipping on your behalf. If you want to go above and beyond, tips to those folks would be done in New Zealand dollars, and then tips to your program director is done in US dollars always. So hopefully that answers those questions. Okay, next up, I'm going to combine a couple of questions here. What about your electrical converter, and does your cell phone work in New Zealand? And so electrical converter is the exact same that we would use in Australia. So if you're also going to our Australia trip, you only need one converter. There'll be a link in the packing list that you receive from my concierge team, and that link will actually take you to the converter that we recommend. And it's super simple. As long as you have that converter or a quality converter, you will be able to plug anything in. And a lot of the rooms actually have USB converters, but you will need your standard converter for anything that you'd like to plug into a normal electrical socket. As always, we recommend folks leave your hair dryer at home and use the ones at the properties. because that's the one wild card that's pretty universal in travel. That's the wild card that gets a little funky with electrical conversions. So the other question is cell phones. Well, cell phone technology and availability is changing rapidly around the world, so check with your cell phone provider. But the long story short is, at the time of this filming, it's very inexpensive to leave your cell phone on and be able to have your cell phone coverage while you're in New Zealand, whether that's text and email and phone calls. But check with your cell phone provider, and it is very, very easy. But the other thing to consider here is you're on holiday. Would you like to be able to unplug and not have phone calls coming in and not have 24/7 access to your cell phone? So that's kind of a decision that you have to make, and balancing cost and then also unplugging. And of course, the properties that we stay at has wonderful Wi-Fi, so you'll be able to log on to Wi-Fi every evening at the property, and a lot of our guests just choose to do that. They turn the cell service off on their phone, and that way they're just operating, while in country, they're just operating on a Wi-Fi signal. And of course, we use a wonderful app to communicate on our trip. It's called WhatsApp, and my travel concierge team is going to introduce you to that app and how we use it. Okay, next up, I'm going to combine a couple of questions again. Question one is, why are New Zealanders called Kiwis? And question two is, are the Kiwis friendly? And Kiwis are called Kiwis after a famous bird here that's found here in New Zealand, the kiwi bird. And I'm sure through video magic, you're probably looking at one on your on this video. It's a nocturnal bird. It is flightless. It's very cute. In fact, my very first trip to New Zealand, I bought my mother a stuffed animal kiwi bird, and she still has it to this day. So kiwi birds are amazing, and for whatever reason, folks here in New Zealand are called Kiwis after that bird. And the other question, of course, is, are Kiwis friendly? And the birds, I don't know. I haven't really hung out with a lot. We do get to see some on our tour at the Wildlife Center, but the people are extremely friendly, and they're very welcoming. Tourism is one of the largest industries here in New Zealand, so they're excited to see tourists, and they're especially excited to see tourists now that we're through the pandemic, and they're welcoming tourists with open arms, because New Zealand, as you probably already know, was locked down and shut down. Their international borders were shut down for over 2 years, so they're really excited to see tourists, and they are very friendly. Okay, next up, how far is it from Australia to New Zealand, or from New Zealand to Australia, if I'm doing the tours back to back? And the answer is about 3 hours. It's not a very long flight. If you're halfway around the world, why not do them back to back? That's certainly why we plan the trips to be back to back. There's usually about a day in between the trip. So talk to your travel concierge team members and check out the options with regards to doing New Zealand and Australia back to back. Okay, I think we have time for one last question, and it is, what is the time difference in New Zealand? Well, depending on daylight savings and exactly where you are in the United States, it's about 14 hours ahead of Eastern Standard Time, for example, and you can do the math off of that. So it is pretty much opposite of whatever your time is if you're traveling from North America. It's on the back side of the world, or maybe the front side of the world, depending on how you look at things. Is it down under or up top? Depending on how you look at things. So thank you so much for tuning in to Saturday Morning Safari New Zealand edition. Or if you're just curious about our New Zealand itinerary and you've watched these answers to these questions, so thank you for your interest. We're on a mission to inspire you and take you to some of the world's last great wild places, and that's exactly what we do with WALLSabout. So until next time, stay adventurous.
It was phenomenal how close we got to the animals.
A wonderful experience, has exceeded all of our expectations.
Get close to them was like a dream come true.
It's been a joy traveling with these individuals, and we're certainly going to see them again.
But there is no way that we could have come up with this trip on our own.
Their attention to detail, to me, made the trip seamless, and so you could just sit back and enjoy the ride.
The facilities in each property where we stayed were all very different, but all very special.
As they do it the most awesome way.
We cannot say enough good things about the concierge level service that WALLSabout delivered.
He got the best possible guides to put us in the best possible spots.
The guides that are handpicked by WALLSabout Luxury Travel are amazing.
It was great. It was wonderful.
Everything was perfection.
Every single day has been amazing.
Every day offered something that you cannot describe. You just have to be here and see it.
The people of Kenya and Tanzania are really wonderful.
Biggest compliment we can give to this trip is that we can't wait to do it again.
We'll be back.